This July 1st, 2020 meeting of the Board of Adjustment will now come to order. Due to COVID-19 concerns, and since most Boulder County offices are closed, this meeting is being held virtually. Information on how to participate in the virtual meeting has been posted on the Board of Adjustment website at www.boco.org/BOA. There will be opportunity to remotely provide public comment on the subject dockets during the respective virtual public hearing portions for each item. I'll provide instructions about that when we get to each docket on the agenda. At this time, I'm going to take a roll call of the Board of Adjustment's attendance. Each of the members can respond if they are present. James Greer.
Present.
Eric Meltz.
Present.
Scott Rudge, myself, present. Harry Stoltzfus.
Present.
Sarah Weavenson.
Present.
Thank you, everybody. Just a reminder to the Board of Adjustment members, please identify yourself before speaking and speak slowly and clearly. All votes on dockets will be roll call votes, and it may help to keep your participant list open in the Teams so you can see who's speaking. The person who's speaking will be bolded on the list. At this time, we'll proceed to the agenda. And the first item on our agenda today is nomination of new officers. I guess I'll call to the Board of Adjustment members for nominations for a new chair. And I'd like to take the opportunity myself to nominate Eric Meltz as the new chair of the board.
This is Carrie Stoltz. I'll second.
Thank you, Carrie. Are there any other nominations? If not, I'll call the roll in favor of appointing or electing Eric Meltz as the new chair of the Board of Adjustment. James Greer.
Aye.
Eric Meltz.
Abstain.
This is Scott Rudge. I vote aye. Carrie Stoltzfus.
Aye.
Sarah Weavenson.
Aye.
Congratulations, Eric. You are elected our new chair. I think
Thank
I
you,
only
Scott.
have one more action left, and that's to take a vote on a vice chair. The vice chair's responsibilities on this board are to substitute for the chairman when the chairman is not available. Are there any nominations for a vice chair?
Insofar as I think the remaining members have either been chair or vice chair, I would like to nominate Sarah Weavenson.
I second that nomination.
That was Eric Meltz seconding the nomination of James Greer. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Hearing none, I'll call a roll for the new vice chair. James Greer.
Aye.
Eric Meltz.
Aye.
This is Scott Rudge. Aye. Harry Stoltzfus.
Aye.
Sarah Weavenson.
Abstain, but thank you.
The vote is 4-0. So we have elected Sarah Weavenson as the new vice chair of the Board of Adjustments. I'd like to take the opportunity to ask one question and then say one thing. Staff or anybody who's responsible, can you tell me if I did that correctly so that that's all official?
You're good, Scott. This is Kim Sanchez.
All right, thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
And then secondly, I'd like to congratulate Eric and Sarah on their new roles on the Board of Adjustment. I've enjoyed my time as chair, and now, Eric, I'm going to hand the remainder of the meeting proceedings over to you.
This is Eric Moutz. Thank you, Scott, and thank you all for the vote of confidence in electing me chair. I think I've served as a Board of Adjustment member under each of you, except for Sarah, when you were chair. And I hope I can do as good a job as each of you have managed to do over the past couple of years. So, without further ado, at this time I'll take the opportunity to explain the public hearing process. We have one docket item scheduled for today's Board of Adjustment hearing, and there will be the opportunity to remotely provide public comment on the subject docket during the public hearing portion for that item. The order of presentation will be to first hear from staff, next from the applicant, and then from many members of the public. When providing comment, please direct all of your questions and comments to the board. I will direct any questions that arise during the hearing to the appropriate party if necessary. Once we have heard all relevant testimony and questions have been answered, the public hearing will be closed. The board will then discuss the merits of the case and come to a decision. Any members of the public who are present participating in this hearing will have the chance to speak, even if they didn't sign up at the Board of Adjustment website beforehand. We'll allow those who signed up in advance, and I don't think there are any today, but if there were, they would get to speak first. And then I'll call any additional members of the public who are attending this meeting virtually to speak. If you join by computer, please sign up by submitting your first name, last name, address, and the docket number in the chat box to the right side of your screen. If you dialed into the meeting by phone, unmute yourself with *6 and state that your desire to provide public comment. We will then add your name to the list in the chat box and proceed in that order. When I call on you to speak, unmute yourself by clicking the microphone button at the bottom of the Teams bar, or if you're on the phone, click *6 and start by saying your name and address for the record. Each speaker is allotted 3 minutes for the record to speak. You'll hear an alarm once your time's up. Please do not submit comments or questions in the chat box during the meeting. The chat box should be used only for the public hearing speaker sign up. Chat box is for that reason I don't believe considered part of the record. So if you want to speak, you need to sign up and speak according to the procedures outlined above. Please remain on mute if you are not speaking. The moderators will mute you to see if your connection is a source of background noise, if we have any background noise, and the meeting is going to run a lot smoother for all of us if we all aren't on open mics. Members of the public will be unable to share their screens during public comment, although the staff and applicant will be able to do so. If you are the applicant, please have your presentation pulled up and ready to go when it is your turn. I'll announce when we are ready for you to present, and at that time you can share your screen. In other words, if you have any questions about how to get your presentation pulled up and ready to go, work on it now, so by the time we get to you, there won't be any delays or problems. This is a public hearing for docket VAR-20-0002. The hearing is now open, and we'll hear from the staff. I understand Mr. Sean Gambrell is the staff member who's going to present today, and if he is here, he may proceed.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, board. My name is Sean Gambrell. I'm the planner on this docket. The docket is, as you said, VAR 20-2. It's the Girl Scouts of Colorado Zipline Tower height variance request located at their property at 863 County Road 101. Just an overview. The applicant is Mernan Franzak from the Girl Scouts of Colorado. It's a parcel in the forestry zoning district, 171 acres in size. It is a building lot, and the request is a request for variance to allow a zipline tower 47 feet 5 inches in height. Again, that's on a 171 acre property in the forest zoning district, where the maximum height is 30 feet. So just to look at the typical maps, Here's the property for the camp, right on the edge of Allen's Park. Just a little closer zoom in to the area, pretty much at the end of County Road 101. Looking at the
Excuse me,
top-
Sean.
Yes.
This is Scott Rudge. Are you sharing your screen? I can see you, but I don't see your presentation.
Okay, let me try that again. Thank you for speaking up.
We can see it now.
You can see it now. Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's just go back to the maps really quick. These are the things you need to see, I guess. So here's the vicinity of the camp parcel, right on the edge of Allen's Park. Here's the kind of the village center of Allen's Park down here. Just a closer zoom in on the site. When we look at the comprehensive plan, there are a lot of resources on this property, areas of high biodiversity significance, significant natural communities, things like that. This is all happening in a developed camp area, only a small amount of actual site disturbance, so no major concerns with any of those resources. In terms of public lands, most significantly, property is bordered on two sides by Rocky Mountain National Park. The county also holds a conservation easement on that portion of the parcel that extends up into the park a little ways. And then just looking at the aerial photo really quickly, you can see here's the entrance to the camp and kind of the main part of the camp. There is a road that comes up this direction to a smaller kind of satellite camp area called Pinecrest. And the tower will be in this vicinity, just a little bit to the northeast of this Pinecrest area. And here's a site plan showing just a few different views. Again, here's the Pinecrest camp, and you can see the platform here that they're looking for the height variance for. The zip line will run from south to north, from this ridge down into the valley, and there will be a landing platform there. That and the zip line itself don't need any action from the Board of Adjustment, so they're not really being considered at this time. Here's a little more of a view, zoom in of the Pinecrest camp. You'll see part of this is a walkway to get to the tower, and this is going to be proposed to be ADA accessible to get to the tower, and that's a major component of this this whole zipline tower is ADA compliance. And then here's just a kind of schematic of what the tower will look like in profile. Essentially just a superstructure with a ladder or stairs going up the side. So just a few pictures from the site visit. Here we are at the pavilion that's at the Pinecrest camp, looking pretty much straight to the east. And the tower site is over at the left-hand side of this, this photo, kind of where the star is located. Just wanted to note a few things while we're looking at the photos. The height of the trees in the vicinity they're tall, mature trees in the 40 to 60 feet range. And also just note that this is a little bit below the crest of the hill. The crest of the hill might come around here, so maybe 6 feet under that. When we're thinking about a height variance, these are things we would take into account. Here we are at the tower site looking south. Again, some of these taller trees. Here's the caretaker for the camp as kind of a comparison, just to see how tall these trees are. I'm looking north. This is actually up the cut where the zip line will run. We're looking, well, I shouldn't say up, we're looking down into the valley area from the tower site. The landing platform will be somewhere down, toward the far end of the valley here. And then here's the view east from the tower site. There is a neighboring home just off to the right here, but pretty dense forest here, and we heard no concerns from that neighbor. So this was referred out to the typical agencies for their review. Not a ton of concerns from these agencies. Building Safety and Inspection Services noted that this would require, building permits and plan review. No concerns from our engineering review team. No concerns from the Natural Resources Planner. Our wildfire mitigation team had no concerns with this particular piece of the application. They noted that wildfire mitigation was required under the previous approval, which still applies to the camp. Our conservation easement team had no concerns. We did hear from Rocky Mountain National Park. They had concerns about visual impacts from some of the nearby peaks and trails. They didn't take a specific stand on approval or denial, but they did suggest if there was an approval that there should be dark colors on the tower and no lighting allowed on the tower. And then adjacent property owners and other public comments. We received 4 comments in opposition, all citing visual concerns and noise concerns with the activities related to the tower. Just a little bit of background on the proposal, and the applicant may be able to provide further detail on this. But from a zoomed out view, LU 15-1 was approved back in 2015 to allow several changes to the camp, and part of that was a challenge course and a zip line that were envisioned at that time. A goal of the zip line that's being proposed now is for access to be ADA compliant. It's dedicated to a disabled scout who is able to use the zip line, and they want to have that be a feature at the camp now. Building permit BP 19340 was applied for last year, and the grading was very high for the location where the tower was proposed at that time, around 1,100 cubic yards. And community planning and permitting staff essentially urged the applicant to consider a new location that would require less grading. And that location did not require a height variance. So it's a relevant point, I think, in the review of this docket. There was a modification submitted, MD 19-32, that approved the location and grading for the zip line in the proposed location, essentially this proposal. However, with the height being over the height limit for the forestry zoning district, they are in here now for a variance. And just another note, there is a land use code update in process to specifically address these structures. Of course, we have no idea at this point, what the commissioners would decide to do with that, whether they will be, more allowing or not with this. But just note that is in process. So in terms of the review criteria, this is from Land Use Code section 41202 B2. So these are the standard criteria for a variance. The first is there exist exceptional or extraordinary physical circumstances of the subject property, such as irregularity, narrowness, shallowness, or slope. So the slope required for a zip line isn't present in areas of the camp that don't require that extensive grading and site disturbance that staff didn't take a high view of previously. So the applicant in their application, they're stating that their exceptional circumstance is actually a lack of slope rather than steepness of slope. However, during staff review, we find that doesn't really constitute an extraordinary physical circumstance. So we found that this criteria was not met. Criteria B, because of these physical circumstances, the strict application of the code creates an exceptional or undue hardship upon the property owner. The physical circumstances of the property essentially either require this extensive site disturbance or a height variance in the locations that were proposed. And the applicant stated in their materials that not being able to operate the tower constitutes an exceptional or undue hardship. In essence, to remain competitive as a camp, that this is becoming a standard and expected amenity at a camp, and not having something like this puts them at a disadvantage. We would note, staff notes that no similar structures have been permitted in the county at any of the similar properties, the other camps or outdoor education centers. So therefore, we find that the hardship is not exceptional or undue. Criteria C, the hardship is not self-imposed. Because CP&P staff directed the applicant away from the initial proposed location where this could be done without a height variance, we find that the hardship is not self-imposed. Criteria D, the variance, if granted, will not adversely affect the use of adjacent property as permitted under this code. The tower is located well inside of the property. It's at least 100 feet from any property line, and it's surrounded by tall trees that are 45 to 60 feet in height. It's located below the crest of the hill that it's located on. And so at the site visit, we determined that the tower would probably be not visible, or if it is, only minimally visible to neighboring properties or to peak highway. And we found that the proposed use of the zipline isn't a significant change to the character or impacts of a camp use. This is essentially something that is typical, would be, along the lines of the challenge course that was approved. And these activities would not be unusual or unexpected for a camp use. And so we did want to say with this that if the board does consider approval for this, we do have several conditions related to visibility that we would want the board to institute as conditions of approval. Criteria E, the variance, if granted, will not change the character of the zoning district in which the property is located and is keeping with the intent of the code and the Boulder County Comprehensive Plan. So the purpose of the forestry district is in part to conserve open spaces. Increasing the intensity of a camp use is not really in conflict with this purpose. The camp itself, operates in a way to conserve open space. The tower is somewhat out of character with the district since there's no similar structures elsewhere in the county. However, since there's no significant visual impacts anticipated, we don't really find that the height of the structure will change the character of the zone. And again, we just wanted to note that a land use code update is in process to specifically address these structures, which hints at these not being, in conflict with the spirit of the comprehensive plan or the land use code. And criteria F, the variance, if granted, does not adversely affect the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Boulder County and is in accordance with the comprehensive plan and any applicable intergovernmental agreement affecting land use or development. We don't find any impacts to health, safety, or welfare anticipated from this project. And again, staff is drafting a code revision to address these structures. So we don't find that there's any discord with the comprehensive plan or any other intergovernmental agreement. So because the application, the proposal does not meet those first two criteria for the variance, staff is going to recommend denial for the docket. However, if the board wishes to consider approval, we would recommend a few conditions to limit visibility, such as maximum tree preservation. We'd propose that all trees over 40 feet tall within 100 feet of the tower location would be preserved. We would want the tower painted or stained to blend with the surrounding vegetation, dark color, and to use non-reflective finishes and dark colored hardware where possible. No lighting would be allowed on the tower, and of course, building permits would be required. So that's the staff review of the project. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
This is Eric Matz. Thanks, Mr. Gamble, for your presentation. I'll ask everybody to mute their microphones. I seem to be getting some feedback from someone. Thank you. So we'll now open the floor for the board members to ask questions of the staff. Do any of the board members have a question for staff?
This is Scott Rudge. Mr. Gambrell, is staff suggesting that there's another location that has both the ADA compatible slope or levelness, but enough grade to properly operate a zip line, and that the Girl Scouts should go and find yet another location on their property that both has low soil removal and sufficient grade?
I don't think I would say that at all. At the site visit, we only are going to review the locations that the applicant came to us with. I didn't, scour the property for other locations where this tower may work. So what I can say is the initial approval required an amount of grading that we were very uncomfortable with, and this new location requires significantly less grading. Orders of magnitude, and unfortunately requires a height variance. So to answer your question, I'm not sure that location exists on the property. If it does, I would have expected the applicant to have proposed that location.
Okay, thank you. This continues to be Scott Rudge. I continue to be confused over what we're allowed to approve and what conditions go along with approval for a variance of this kind. Why are we involved in the coloring and the lighting of this tower if we're simply approving a variance to the height regulation? That seems to me to be a building permit condition.
So one of the criteria does directly involve or directly have us look at the impacts to surrounding properties. And so allowing this excess height, probably would carry some impacts to surrounding properties. So these would all be conditions to mitigate that. Building permit review is not going to, look at those land use impacts. Building permit is going to look at, the structural integrity of what's being built, that kind of thing. So that's where the land use approval comes in and where these conditions to mitigate impacts would be involved. Does that clarify things?
Yes, somewhat. Thank you. And still, Scott Rudge, how can we ensure that the trees over 40 feet tall will be preserved? What if there's a beetle kill or something?
Well, that's a good point. I guess when I was putting these together, the thought was that they wouldn't be removed for the sake of the access or for the sake of, having a gathering area, that basically these trees wouldn't be unnecessarily removed. If there was, beetle kill or something like that, then I think, we would allow those trees to be removed. And that's a good point. We should perhaps consider that as a revision if this does go to approval.
Okay, I don't have any more questions.
Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. You anticipated my next question, which was, do any of the other board members have additional questions? Okay, hearing no additional questions for staff, we'll now proceed to the applicant's presentation. The applicant will have 10 minutes to make their presentation, and then we will allow for questions by the board members to the applicant. Applicant, are you ready to make your presentation?
Hi, this is Krista. I have some slides to share, but my team's bar says only meeting organizers and presenters can share. So, not sure.
One moment, Krista. I will take care of that for you. This is Anna Milner, staff. Give me 1 second.
Thank you very much.
In addition, Krista, it is generally customary for the folks presenting to state their address for the record. Or the address of their organization if you don't want to share a personal address. In this case, that would be acceptable.
All right.
And your first and last name.
And Krista, you should be ready to go.
All right. Can you all see the presentation? My name is Krista Buechler. I live at 601 Fossil Creek Drive, Fort Collins, Colorado. And I will also have assistance from Sarah Rogers, so she can go ahead and introduce herself.
My name is Sarah Rogers. I'm at 85 Sun Mesa Lane, Durango, Colorado.
Thank you so much for having us today. We're really excited to talk about a project that we're both really passionate about, the Zipline for Tate project. So Tate Pugh was a member of our Girl Scout troop and a member of another Girl Scout troop in Fort Collins. She had epilepsy and often spoke with the assistance of an iPad. Unfortunately, she passed away in 2011. And since that time, we wanted to donate money to Girl Scouts or do something in Tate's name to honor her and memorialize her. We saw that a zipline was on Meadow Mountain Ranch's wish list. And so we knew that that was the project for us.
Yeah, we thought this was the perfect way to both honor Tate's memory and honor her adventurous spirit, as well as stay within the way we represented ourselves as Girl Scouts and the way the camp was representing itself.
The reason we chose a zipline was because in 2008, our troop took a trip to Costa Rica, and Tate came with us. We did a lot of high adventure activities on that trip, including ziplining, and none of us had ever been ziplining before. And so we were worried about Tate, but she had the time of her life. On the platform between the zips, she would point and say up, and she couldn't get enough. And so we really wanted to share that experience and her joy with everyone who comes to camp, especially girls with disabilities.
Yeah, that trip kind of became a rallying point for everyone in the troop, because even those of us that were not on that trip with her had heard the stories and had experienced that amazing sense of joy that Tate had and shared with everyone in her life.
So our vision for the zipline, it's really important to us for it to be fully accessible to those with disabilities. We're hoping that when the zipline is finished, there will be a plaque dedicating the zipline to Tate, and we would love to organize a day for girls and people with disabilities to come to the camp and use the zipline so that they can enjoy it just like Tate did. Diversity and inclusion are really important in Girl Scouts. Girl Scouting is for every girl. I'm just going to read quickly this inclusion statement from Girl Scouts. Girl Scouts embraces girls of all abilities, backgrounds, and heritage with a specific and positive philosophy of inclusion that benefits everyone. Each girl, without regard to socioeconomic status, race, physical or cognitive ability, ethnicity, primary language, or religion, is an equal and valued member of the group, and groups reflect the diversity of the community. As a troop, we really believe that outdoors and high adventure activities and Girl Scout camp in general should be accessible to everyone. We believe that Girl Scouts of every ability should be able to participate in every activity, just like Tate did with our group. We want to be able to create a more equitable and inclusive society, and to do that, we have to foster diversity and understanding. And we think that we can do that, and you can do that by supporting the Zipline for Tate project and other projects like it.
We were lucky to have such an amazing experience with Tate and have her be a true part of our troop that got to do everything we did. And we hope for that for every girl in the future.
Why Meadow Mountain Ranch? So many of us have been going to MMR for as long as we can remember as resident campers. And then our troop has camped up there for troop camp ever since it closed for resident camp. Tate has also spent time up there with us, and we've always had such a good time with her and with our group. When we heard that MMR could become a high adventure camp with the zipline, we were really excited about the new features, and we wanted to help MMR with these new additions. So every time our troop goes up to MMR, from the time that I was a girl in the troop to present day, when our troop is still going up there, we always do a service project, like painting the cabins or digging post holes, repairing steps. So this project is kind of part of a larger extension of our service to MMR.
We want to give back to the place that gave us so much, and this seemed like a way to do it that would help others.
So to date, we've raised over $50,000 toward the zipline. 5% of profits from every fundraiser we do goes toward the zipline from the Give Me 5 program. So this includes Girl Scout cookie sales, which you all probably love cookies just as much as we do. And it really does add up. We sold over 23,000 boxes of cookies this year as just our troop. So every year that really adds up. And then we also hold special fundraisers dedicated just to the project. And we've received really wonderful support from the Girl Scout community, as well as just community members offering donations. And as well, we've applied and received some grants from the group publishing and Disney Friends for Change.
And this is an ongoing project. We started it when we were troop members in 2011. And though we are still troop members as adults, the youth troop members have continued this project as they're aging through, and it's a lasting project throughout our troop.
And we believe that this project can really have a wonderful impact going forward on future girls coming to camp and in Girl Scouts of Colorado. But it has also had a really wonderful impact on those of us who have been involved already. The girls that have been involved since the beginning of this project have gone on to become or are still studying to become teachers and educators specializing in special education. doctors and healthcare professionals, social justice advocates, and AmeriCorps volunteers. We really believe that Girl Scouts builds girls of courage, confidence, and character who make their world a better place. And this project for us is an embodiment of that mission. So we're so excited to hopefully see this project to fruition and have our vision realized. All right, so only a few of us could be here at this meeting today. So we have collected some testimonials from other girls involved in the troop. So I'm going to start off and read a message from Hannah Zegerson. I want to start by saying that even though I didn't know Tate as well as some of the other members of Geckos, I really felt that she had a lasting impact on me, and I remember her with a lot of joy. She was always up for a challenge and hit every bike ride or hike with perseverance. The lasting impact that Tate left on our troop was evident through the Zipline for Tate. She showed that every girl should have the opportunity to explore the outdoors through Girl Scouts, and having a fully accessible zipline is just one of the steps toward that goal. Meadow Mountain Ranch was a place where I found some of my best friends through middle and high school. Those girls were my support system and meant the absolute world to me. Making places like MMR more accessible will bring those opportunities to more girls. This is a project I have believed in for nearly half my life, and seeing it come so close to fruition is more exciting than I can describe. This project started as a way to honor a friend and troop member, and developed into one of the most meaningful things I did during my adolescence. Sage Zimmerman is going to read next.
Hello, my name is Sage Zimmerman. My address is 110 Dupre Avenue, Fort Collins, Colorado. And I'm going to read my statement now. Tate was such a lovely and special person. The memory that I think of when I think of Tate was playing games with her in the cabin at snow camp one year. This was the first time I had met Tate, and I knew instantly that she was a very special person. I had heard about Tate through all the kind things everyone who knew her had to say, so when I met her, I felt truly honored. Tate may not have been able to go snowshoeing or sledding at snow camp that year, but she was still a vital part of that trip. The time I spent sitting on the floor of the cabin playing games with Tate was one of the most memorable parts of that trip, and I feel so lucky to have had that time with her. When I think about Tate, the first thing that comes to my mind is the immense amount of joy she brought to everyone she met. Her smile was contagious and lit up a room. Being a part of Geckos meant the world to me, in part because of the sense of community that came with the group. Geckos was, and still is, such an inclusive, lovely group of people. And although I have aged out of the group, I still have a lifelong community of amazing girls that I remain close to today. I strongly believe that everyone deserves to have the same sense of community and inclusion that came to me with Geckos. And having an accessible zipline not only provides all people with adventure and unforgettable experiences, it also sends a message of inclusion and community that I believe is a vital part of Girl Scouts. This project has been a priority for Geckos for a long time, and I look forward to seeing this project brought to life and giving everyone the opportunity to experience the immense joy that Tate did when she first went ziplining.
My name is Sarah Rogers. My most vivid memory with Tate is hiking Twin Sisters. There was a small group of us that preferred to hike a little bit slower, and eventually it was as if we had the whole trail to ourselves. We took our time and stopped at cool trees and tried to spot wildlife, and at one point I sat down to take a rock out of my shoe, and Tate just plopped herself right into my lap. I would give absolutely anything to have a picture of that moment, but we were all way too busy laughing for anyone to take one. She brought joy and wonder to everyday things, and she found the amazing traits in everything. She stopped midway on that hike with her mom as with the rest of us continued on. And at the very top, I admit, I broke the rules a little bit, and I picked up 2 rocks, one for me and one for her. She carried hers down for the rest of the hike once we met up again, and mine sits proudly on my desk to this day, nearly 10 years later. The thing about Tate is that while she taught me many lessons and influenced me in many positive ways, she wasn't just a lesson, and she's not a superhero. She was one of us. She was a friend, a sister, and a Girl Scout. Not despite our differing abilities, but because of them, we all formed a bond of friendship that will never end. Her adventurous spirit lives on in each of us and every girl who wants to try new things. This zipline is our way of fostering that fire and providing a place where every person, regardless of any of their differing abilities, can experience adventure just like Tate did. Though Tate can't ride this zipline, other kids just like her can have the opportunity to be brave, try something new, and find their families in Girl Scouts just like we did. This zipline is an 8+ year labor of love and a tribute to both our sister and our favorite place in the world. This ambitious project, started by a group of teenagers, is a symbol of inclusion and love that could be the start of another lifelong adventurous Girl Scout experience. I hope this is where that adventure continues.
This is Jean Buechler, 601 Fossil Creek Drive, Fort Collins, Colorado. I'm going to read a thought from Maya Raynard Freed, who was a special friend of Tate's. When Tate wasn't wasn't different than any other teenage girls. She had special friends that she picked. While she was a friend to everyone, she had her special friends, and Maya was one of them. She says, Tate was an amazing person who was very sweet and fun, a good friend to me in a time when I think I really needed friends. And in hindsight, I think I really needed her as a friend. She was very nice and welcoming and really wanted to interact with others. I think my experience as a Girl Scout was made so much better by knowing and befriending Tate. Knowing her and seeing her interacted with the world also helped me to be proud and accepting of myself as a disabled person later on. I miss her all the time, even now. This zipline and it being accessible is so important. Girl Scouts is meant to be for every girl, and that means disabled Girl Scouts too. We should be able to be accommodated as much as possible to be as involved with Girl Scouting and able to do the same things as other girls. I know I have had experiences with being accommodated as a Girl Scout and not being accommodated, so I deeply care about this, and I know how important inclusion is within Girl Scouts. This project is deeply important. This project is deeply important for the Gecko Troop, the people who love Tate, and all the people who will get to enjoy the zipline just as Tate did. And then I have another one from Monica Elliott. She was instrumental in writing some of our grants that we were able to receive. I think for me, the Zipline for Tate project has gained even more meaning as I've grown older. Tate was a sweet girl. I remember being her friend and being sad when she passed away, but I didn't realize the significance of our troop's decision to memorialize her like this until about 2 years after I graduated high school. I was a counselor at a camp that deeply valued inclusion, and I saw how it impacted the campers. We had a girl in our group, Kendall, who had special needs, and she did all the camp activities with us. She would talk with her iPad with the other girls and was honestly the most popular girl in our cabin. I remember when she went down the zip line, she wasn't even scared. All the girls cheered her on, and she had the best time. This, for me, is what the Zipline for Tate project is all about. Girls everywhere, including and cheering for those with special needs. It's about allowing anyone the chance to experience camp, regardless of physical or mental capabilities. It's about every girl like Tate or Kendall who wants to go on a zip line. And it's about every girl like me whose life is made better by knowing them.
This is Sage Zimmerman again. I'm going to read a statement by Kaylee McCuster, another member of Geckos. Being a part of this project has been inspirational because it made me realize that my voice can make a change. To be able to see this project come to completion by building the zipline would not only be a realization of the project, but it would help create an accessible environment for everyone to enjoy at MMR for future Girl Scouts and their families. Building this in Tate's name is a reminder that we need to be more inclusive to those we love, and this project is just a stepping stone to more accessibility in our Girl Scout community and beyond.
My name is Sarah Rogers. I'll be reading a statement from Jenna Woods, another member of the Zipline for Tate project. The Zipline for Tate project is a powerful example of dedication that a community of young women can organize in remembrance of a dear friend, as well as providing inclusion to people with disabilities. The continued work and eventual completion of this project will serve as a constant reminder of the resources that can be utilized to create opportunities and experiences for people with disabilities. This project will continue to serve the memory of Tate, the special needs community, and all that have been part of it long after its completion. And I will say that Jenna is studying to be an educator for students with special needs, so it's definitely near and dear to her heart.
Can I, this is Eric Moutz. I'd like to stop everyone for a second to just make sure we continue to adhere to our procedures. It looks like the applicant's time for their initial statement is up and has actually been exceeded by several minutes. And it also sounds like there are other folks other than the applicant's representative who are now reading statements into the record. If we want to have folks who are going to offer public testimony, there will be an opportunity for that in the hearing, and those folks will have to sign up according to the procedures I outlined earlier. So I just want to be sure that we follow those procedures and make sure that if we have folks that are offering public testimony, that we do that appropriately. The applicant, did I mishear, or was there another person who was reading statements into the record?
All the people that read statements are people that are present on this call. Some of them were written by representatives of the project.
Okay. I don't, and maybe I'm missing something, but I don't see any of those folks signed up to provide public comment. And so the way we would normally do things is you as the applicant will make your statement, which you've more than done. And then if there are folks on the line who want to offer public testimony in support of your application, those folks will need to sign up and provide their name and address and so forth. And they can do that by text or by phone. But however they need to do it, they do need to do it in order to follow the procedures that we have to adhere to in this hearing. So do you know how many more people, if any, you have that want to offer testimony?
We have one more, and it's actually written by a person who is present on the call. Is that all right?
So to the other board members, just for the sake of expediency, and I apologize because I didn't catch this quick enough and stop the presentation and restore order quickly enough. But is it okay with everyone if if the applicant has their other person read their statement into the record, and that we effectively consolidate the public testimony the applicant would have had in support of their application and the applicant's presentation? And in the future, I'll make sure to jump in quickly when this happens.
This is Carrie Stoltzfus. I think that's fine.
And this is Scott Rudge. Eric, I believe it's completely up to you unless you want a motion from the board, which I don't think you're asking for.
No, I think it's up to me, but I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page and happy to let them proceed. So with that, I'll let the applicant present their final statement in support of the application, and then we will turn to any questions the board has for the applicant.
All right. So our last statement, and these were all part. This is Krista Buechler. These statements were all part of our presentation. They're not really public comments. They're all people that are involved in the project, all part of the applicant group. So this last one is from me, Krista Buechler. My first memories of Tate were on the Costa Rica trip of 2008. She was able to participate in every activity we did, including hiking, horseback riding, and of course, ziplining. Ziplining was clearly her favorite activity. Tate mainly communicated with an iPad, sign language, and some verbal communication. This was my first real exposure to someone with disabilities, and I learned that you don't have to communicate the same way or have the same experiences to be friends. As some of the other Gecko testimonials have mentioned, Tate was a joy to have in the troop, and she has been missed deeply. Knowing Tate and participating in this project have been so impactful to me. I've learned so much about the importance of inclusion, and with the right accommodations, girls of all ability levels can excel and grow in scouting. Working on this project has taught me about fundraising and grant writing and how we can make a change in our community. In college, I've taken several classes on disability studies, and I believe now more than ever in the importance of accessibility, inclusivity, acceptance, and diversity. The Gecko Troop was founded on the love of outdoor activities, and there is no reason why those activities shouldn't be accessible to everyone. Girl Scouts builds girls of courage, confidence, and character who make their world a better place. And this project for us is the embodiment of that mission. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the board for the applicant?
This is Scott Rudge. I have one. I read in the board in our reading materials for this docket that there's an expiration on the funding for this project, that it can't wait another month or another 6 months or some amount of time for approval because the funding will be lost. Could the applicant comment on that for us? Because there's no other information in the packet describing the funding situation.
This is Myrnan Franzak. I am the property director for Girl Scouts of Colorado. And the limitation really is tied to the construction of the project. If we don't get it done by the end of 2021, then the prices will go up and it will cost us a lot more money. So that's why there's hopefully an end date to when we can do the project.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question, Eric.
Are there any other questions for the applicant?
This is Carrie Stoltzfus. I have a question. So am I understanding correctly that the process that you guys have gone through to get this approved is that there is a spot on the site that you would not need a variance to construct this, but that the grading required at that site is too complicated, which is what the county recommended you move into the current site that you're proposing. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. That was my only question. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? Hearing no further questions for the applicant, we will now move to public testimony if there is any. Do we have any members of the public here who would like to testify or make a statement in support or in opposition to the application? Okay, seeing no public testimony, we will now return to the staff who will be allowed to make a clarifying statement or respond to the applicant's presentation.
Eric, this is Richard Hackett, staff. I do see there's one person called in. I just want to make sure they have a chance to unmute if they haven't. So if you're a caller on the line and you want to speak, you'll need to press *6 on your phone to unmute, and then you'll have time to speak. I just want to give a few more seconds for that if that's the case.
Thank you. All right. It doesn't appear like anyone is unmuting or attempting to offer comment. So I am going to move forward to the staff's response. The applicant will then be given a chance to respond to or rebut anything the staff addresses in their response here. Mr. Gambrill?
I have nothing to add.
All right. Thank you very much. Applicant, do you have anything? I doubt you do, but anything you would like to add?
Again, my name is Myrnan Franzak. I'll spell that for you. M-Y-R-N-A-N. Franzak, F-R-O-N-C-Z-A-K. Business address 3801 East Florida Avenue, Suite 720, Denver 80210. And I do not have anything else to add. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. We will now close the public hearing, and closing the public hearing means that there can be no more testimony either from members of the public or from the applicant or staff, and we will turn to board discussion. Board members, what do you think about this requested variance?
I'd like to, this is Sarah Webenson. I'd be happy to make a motion that we approve the variation. My interpretation is that they do have extraordinary physical circumstances, which is the delicate nature of the land upon which they are hoping to construct the tower. The undue hardship is that they have been asked to not locate it in the original area where they proposed, that it did not come from them. So it was not self-imposed. I think we heard the comments from the neighbors that the impacts on the use of their property was not impacted, but more so along the lines of enjoyment, which I have some thoughts on that. And that it does not change the character of the zoning district in which it's located. That there are some conditions from staff that I do agree with. So I guess if I made a motion, it would be to approve the variation, but with the conditions proposed by staff, adding the clarification that was discussed earlier, that the condition to preserve the trees is limited to preservation of as many trees as possible as far as the construction of the tower, but limited to that. I would also just add that I encourage the applicant to meet the request to provide renderings to show that the tower does not exceed the height of the trees around it. We heard from staff that the trees were 40 to 60 feet, and this is 47 feet. So that satisfied to me that the visual impact would be limited, but if they wanted to, they could provide renderings from key vantage points in the area that it would be within the tree cover. I would also add, sorry, I have a laundry list of things, but the county noise ordinances are in effect. I looked up what that was. So for the neighbors who wrote in, it's ordinance 1992 I think 28. But it says that periodic impulsive or shrill noises cannot exceed certain decibels. So the applicant is encouraged to make sure that they're meeting that. But that is my motion. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion, or would anyone like to second Sarah's motion?
This is Scott Roach. I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I just have a quick thing. I didn't hear you mention specifically, staff had mentioned for us to maybe request that they use darker paint colors. Was there anything definitive on, and then sound like we had some questions on that? Not sure if we want to get that added.
As far as the motion, I think because that's included in the conditions, that would be included in the motion.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I didn't see it in there.
No, it's a good question. Thank you.
That was my understanding as well. And it occurs to me that the staff typically likes us to formalize our motions when the staff has conditions in something like the following format. I move to approve VAR-20-002 subject to the following conditions, and then list those conditions out. I've done the same thing that you have done this time, Sarah, but I remember that the staff likes us to make a more definite record. So, Sarah, would you like to amend your motion?
Sure. I would like to approve variation. I just have to scroll back up. Sorry. 1 second. Can I just amend it as suggested, or should I read it all out again?
I think, unfortunately, you should read it out.
I'd like to move that we approve variation -20-0002 for the Girl Scouts of Colorado Zipline Tower, with the conditions recommended by staff, if we so move. These include that the variation is approved to only allow for the proposed zipline tower to exceed the 30-foot height limit to a maximum height above grade of 47 feet 5 inches. To reduce visual impacts, maximum tree preservation is required, and I would amend to their condition during the construction process, and that all trees over 40 feet in height within a 100-foot radius of the tower shall be preserved during the construction process. particularly the 57-foot tall tree directly to the south of the tower site. The applicant shall stain or otherwise color the tower in a dark brown, green, or similar color to blend the tower into the forested surroundings. All materials shall have a non-reflective finish, and non-reflective and dark-colored hardware shall be used wherever possible. No lighting may be installed on the tower, and the use shall be limited to 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. All relevant building code and wildfire mitigation requirements must be incorporated into the building permit plans, and all other future development is subject to applicable permitting and setback requirements. The applicant is also encouraged to take a look at the county noise ordinance protections and to offer to provide a rendering to concerned neighbors to demonstrate that the tower will be shielded by trees from key vantage points.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. Do we have a second for the amended motion?
Yes, this is Scott Rudge. I'll second the motion once again.
Thank you, Scott. The motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing no discussion, I will call a roll call vote on the motion. Scott Rudge?
Aye. Scott Rudge, aye.
James Greer?
James Greer, aye.
Carrie Stolfus?
Aye.
And Sarah Weavenson?
Aye.
This is Eric Mounts. I also vote aye. VAR -20-002 is approved. There being no other business, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.